Welcome everybody, my name is Luna and this is another Smite video. For this video I am actually going to focus on my top picks for each class. So my top hunter, my top assassin, my top warrior, my top mage, and my top guardian. One for every class. And to start it off I am going to talk about Amazon Cobb, or Amazon Cobb, or Amazon Cab. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I like Amazon Cobb. I am not going to go into too much detail about their kit or why, or the reason for it is there's so many guides out there on what their kits do that I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what I level first and then what my preferred build is, which you can see down here. Now then, the very first thing I want to talk about is my build for him. And it always starts the same way. I always go for Blood Forge first. For the massive amount of damage that it outputs, I actually used to use it even before its rework, and it still worked perfectly for me. After that, I went into Hasten Fatalis, Boots, and Malice, or Rage. I always get Rage. I always like the crit percent chance. After this, the build changes depending on who we're fighting. So if I'm fighting another hunter, I like to get Executioner and Quinn size. Because I feel like with hunters, you have to outshoot them. They're always going to be shooting faster than you, but you have to be able to outshoot them. Or no, they're not always shooting faster than you, but you still do have to outshoot them. You have to shoot faster than them. So I get Executioner, and I might trade Rage for protections if I'm fighting against Hou. And I would go with Breastplate of Valor. If I'm fighting Guardians, it's always Quinn size, Executioner, and Titan's Bane. I actually need to put Titan's Bane in my build, in my set build. And if I'm fighting anyone else, I always have Executioner in here, but I go Rage, and I go Malice. This is for anyone else that I fight, so assassins, mages, that kind of thing. I always try to go for a more damage-oriented build. Get out of here. But that's just me personally. You can tweak my build to whatever you want to do, or you could use your own build. But something I have to note about Amazon Cobb is he's not the kind of god that you start the game with. Like, if you already know how to play Smite, then maybe you can start out with him and try a new god, trying Amazon Cobb. But if you have no knowledge about the game, then Amazon Cobb is one of the hardest hunters to play. That said, I always level his 2 first for the clear. Then I actually go into his 3. Now the reason for this is his 3 has its own kind of damage that it puts out while slowing down opponents. But even if you don't have a hive active, you can still activate it by throwing your 2. So you'll do damage plus extra tick damage and slowing enemies. Then I go for his 1, and after I finish his 1, I prioritize his 2, his ult, his 2, actually I'll just show you. So have 1 of each ability, up his 2, grab his ult, and then continue on his 2 until you can't anymore, and then work on his 1. After that, ult, his 2, his 1, and then max out his 1, and then start focusing on his 3. The reason I feel like this is how it should be done is because even though his 3 is a kind of clear in its own right, like late game it probably can clear minions, but his 2, his 1, and his ult are his bread and butter. His 1 at max rank will give him extra movement speed and attack speed. So he shoots much faster which gives him another edge above other hunters. And not at max rank, it's still a very useful item, because it gives him 10% movement speed and 10% attack speed, which is still good. It still takes him from almost 1.5 to 1.96, and that's still a pretty significant jump. As you can see. But that is just my overview on why I like Amazon Cobb. If you don't like him, that's your own thing. If you want to use my build, you certainly can. But now I'm going to move on to my next one, which is going to be my top assassin. So the next guy I want to talk to you about is Fenrir, my top assassin. Now, I don't play a lot of assassin. I feel like I'm too squishy and me going in is too much of a hassle. That's just me personally, but if I had to choose an assassin over other assassins, I choose Fenrir. And how I start Fenrir is I start with his 3, then I go into his 1, his 3 again, his 2, and then his ult. After that, priority is max out his 3 until you can no longer max it out, and then maximize his 1. And then, as always, just like, actually, you don't even have to really max out his ult, because it's basically the same throughout. He just gets a little bit of extra damage, is all. Granted, that damage may help you, so you might want to max it out first. But I would rather max out his first 3 abilities and then do his ult. Now, my preferred build with Fenrir, and this is me personally, this is how I play Fenrir, is I like lifesteal Fenrir. So, as always, I start with boots. Then I prioritize Devo Gloves, or Devourer's Gauntlet. Then I go for Bloodforge and Soul Eater. That, I believe, maxes out his lifesteal at max rank. After that, I go for Titan's Bane for the penetration, and this is where it gets a little iffy. If I'm fighting a team that's very damage oriented, I will go for Shifter Shield. If I'm fighting a team that doesn't do all that much damage to me, I will go Frostbound Hammer. And if it's 1 versus 1, I will either go with Runic Shield, or not Shield of Regrowth, the other one, Void Shield. That is my personal build. I actually like Shifter Shield. That is how I play Fenrir. If that's not how you want to play Fenrir, that's perfectly fine. He can also work as a tank, because if you get all of his runes ready, which is his passive, right up here, you can pause it and read that. If you get all of his runes activated, which activate with basic attacks, then his ult will also double his protections. So if you build him full protections, he will get even tankier as he uses his ult and grabs somebody. That was why I like Fenrir as my assassin, and now I will get into my warrior. Now for my warrior, I actually had a tough time deciding between Tyr and Chalk, but ultimately I'm going to have to give this one to Chalk, because I feel like he's easier to play. That might just be me. It might be easier to play Tyr for you guys, or it might be easier to play other warriors. But for me, I like Chalk, and I like how he's flexible with what he can do. Just like most warriors, he's very flexible. But for me, I always start with his 1. Always start with the 1. It is his most damaging ability, aside from his ult. Then I actually go for his 3 because I like the sustain. I like being able to heal as the game progresses. Then again his 2, his ult, and then this is where it gets tricky. I could either up his 1 first, or I can up his 3. And this all depends on the situation. If they're doing a lot of damage to me, then I want to up his 3 first. But if they're not doing all that much damage to me, if I'm a lot tankier than I should be, then I go for his 1 for the bit of extra damage. After that, it's just maxing out one of the 2, whichever ones I decide to go for, and his ult. I don't really use his 2 very often. I don't know why. It might be better to up his 2 for the bit of extra clear, but that's just how I do it. So I either max out one or the other. Then I always max out the ult while, maxing out his 2. After that, I go for my build, and my build is always the same. Regardless if I'm fighting a very damage-oriented team or not, I go for Height of the Urchin. If I'm fighting 1 versus 1, then obviously I'm going to go for something different like Shield of Regrowth, or maybe, what was the other? Runic Shield. But I always build Height of the Urchin first on my tanks, because I like, as the game progresses, you get tankier and tankier. After that, it's obviously Boots.
Very nice.
Then I go for Jotun's Wrath. And then, depending on if I want to do damage or if I want to be more defensive, I will either go for Spirit Robe or Titan's Bane. Say, for this example, I want to go tankier, I'll go for Spirit Robe. Then I will go into Titan's Bane and then Quinsize for the last bit of extra damage and for the attack speed. Because Chalk, unlike most of the warriors, is a basic attack god. Gods like Tyr are more ability based, Amaterasu is more ability based, but Chalk is very much his 1, his 2, and then basic attacking him down. Or if you want, you could just use his ult and then still cut them down. That's how I personally do it. But if I'm not going for damage, then I will trade Quinsize for, not Shield of Regrowth. If I want to be more sustaining, I will go for Gauntlet of Thebes. And I actually don't see Gauntlet of Thebes being used as much as it should. But that is because it is so easy to build against it. It is so easy to build anti-crit items like Pestilence, let me see, where is it? Pestilence, Brawler's Beatstick, and Divine Rune. But most of the time, people won't think about that and they won't build those items. So I like having it as an extra bit of health for his 3. With that said, I'm going to move on to my next character, which is my mage. Now, picking my mage was actually very easy. I love playing as Nox. She is my favorite mage. I absolutely love playing as her. There's not much else to say. For her abilities, I always max out her 2 first. Then I go into her 1 because her 1-2 combo is her most damaging combo. But nowadays, you can either max out her 3 or her 1 first. I personally still like the 1 thing. So I max out her first 2 abilities first, while still keeping an eye on her ult, and then maxing out her 3 last. That's just me. Like, there are some people who would love to max out her 3 and then pass through the enemy, get into a teammate, and then explode, do extra damage. You're doing twice as much damage with 1 ability. It's amazing. Now, a lot of people, I'm just using this as reference, or as a bit of extra information. A lot of people don't think that her ult is considered a snipe. I personally do, but only at max range. Like, if you can get someone from max range and still hit them, still get that kill, I consider it a snipe. And I love sniping people with it. That was just a bit of quick information. As for her build, I always start with Vampiric Shroud, Lost Artifact, or, if not Lost Artifact, if I want to build stacks first, then I will go for, what is this? Soul Reliquary. Oh, Soul Reliquary. And then start building Book of Thoth.
Perfect.
Oh, what? Okay. After that, I love cooldown knocks. So I go for Chronos Pendant, Shoes of Focus, and then I go for Penetration. So I go for Obsidian Shard, Rada Tahuti, and then I trade Vampiric Shroud for another damaging. Or, yeah. I usually go for a bit of extra penetration. So where are you, penetration? I actually go for Spear of Desolation as last item for that extra power. This is my build. This does not have to be your build. If you don't agree with my build, that's fine. Build whatever you feel comfortable with. But for me, I like being able to use her abilities every 10-ish so seconds. Save for her ult, which is still about a little over a minute.
Silence.
But I love being able to use her ability every like 10 seconds. Now, a very close second was actually Hades, but like I said, Nox is my favorite goddess. I will always choose Nox if I have to play a mage. And if I can't play Nox, I will play Hades. And if I can't play either of them, then there's still a lot of great mages out there. There's Zeus, there is Zhongqi, who is actually a lot better than most people think. And Poseidon, there's one for everyone. But with that said, I'm going to get into my last god and my favorite god, the Guardian. And now, without further ado, my favorite god in Smite, Khepri. Let me explain myself. When I first played Smite, I saw Khepri and I told my brother, I want to play as the bug. I want to play as this bug right here. And as I got to, at first I was very bad. Let's just say I was very bad at the game. But I still loved playing Khepri. I still love playing him to this day. He's the very first god I had Diamond. And now he is still my favorite. I still love his tankiness. I still love his passive. Even as I learn the game more, he has remained my favorite. But now, let me get into his abilities. First and foremost, I up his 2. Now the reason for this is I like the tick damage. And I like the buffs that it gives teammates. And I love the debuffs it gives enemies. And that is protection debuffs and damage reductions. And it actually used to give protections to allies. Oh, no, allies take reduced damage from hits, so 30% reduced damage. It actually, oh no, it was his ult that gave power. Okay, so I always up his 2 first, and then his 1, then his 3. After this, I actually like to max out his 2 first, before maxing out his other abilities. Then I shift my priorities to his 1, keeping focus on his ult, and maxing out his 3 last. That's just me, personally. Now, there's something to understand about Khepri. He is not a boxing god. He is not a god that is built for 1v1. Even if you go all damage Khepri, he is still not going to be the most damaging god. Bracken can be way more devastating than he can. Other guardians like Botchus and Kumbhakarna can also do far more damage. Khepri is a more team-oriented god. He is a defense-oriented god. Now, for his build, like I said before, I love Hide of the Urchin first, and then you have to get some cooldown on him, because using his abilities in rapid succession is how I feel Khepri should be played. That's me personally. Like I said before, do what you feel comfortable with. After that, I shift his priority actually into Warlock Sash. Now the reason for that is I want Khepri to have as much health as he possibly can. Not really for damage, but for health. Now after this, it switches to, do I want to play more defensively, or do I want to abuse the enemy team a little bit more? If I want to abuse the enemy team, then I will go for Gem of Isolation. If I want a little bit more protections, I will either go for Bulwark of Hope if they have a more magical oriented team, or Breastplate of Valor if they have a more physical oriented team. But if they have both, then I will build a little bit on each item. I feel like that works. It probably doesn't, but that's just me. But say I'm going all unkillable tank. My last item will be Mantle of Discord. Or not Mantle of Discord. That'll give him full cooldown, and he is, at this point, the most unkillable tank I can come up with. And the thing is, he's not a weakling either. He still can do lots of damage. But, like I said, he's not focused on his damage. So you're going to have to focus on his abilities more than you're focusing on anything else. But he is going to be an unkillable tank in every sense of the word. Like, if I look at his stats, he has pretty good... Oh, I was running into a wall. He has pretty good defenses there. And that's without a fully built Hide of the Urchin, which will give him even more. But if I want to abuse the enemy team more, I will stick to just this item. And then the rest of the items will be Gem of Isolation, Obsidian Shard for the penetration, and Rod of Tahuti. Or Rod of the Booty, however you want to say it. I really don't mind. But I like building this kind of build on Khepri because I like still being able to help my team with damage while still being a threat and being super tanky. I like being a threat while still being super tanky. But that's just me. That's how I build Khepri, and like I said, he is my favorite god. So that is how I built Khepri, and trust me, my gameplay with him is better than how I can explain my gameplay is with him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please understand that this is all my personal opinion. I would love to hear what you guys like in the comments down below. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike this video, because this is early. This is going to be my very first edit. And subscribe if you want to. It will really help, but you don't have to if you don't want to. With that said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you next time.